I'd like to get into it, but the Scale AI program isn't just for AI companies.
No, it's not specifically for AI companies. It's companies that want to integrate AI and solve problems as it relates to supply chains and logistics.
Great.
Yeah.
So, before tipping our hat, again, put your
Yeah.
questions and comments. We will respond live. And why don't we start off with a little bit about, hey, John Irwin, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Craig?
I'm doing great. Before we jump right into Scale AI, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background so people understand who you are?
Yeah. Who the heck am I? Why should you be listening to me talking about a funding program, right? So I've got I think almost over 16 years now of government funding experience. I've done multiple applications. I've secured millions in funding for many clients in Canada and overseas as well. Um, and yeah, so I have been involved. So first off, I'm not an expert in the Scale AI program. I'm not from Scale AI, and I have experience with Scale AI. I have a couple clients that were applying for Scale AI, so I've got some experience with it, enough that I can talk to and disseminate information to people. If you do want additional information, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or Scale AI actually does do webinars as well. If you want to get information directly from them, you more than happy to. But if you want me to vet any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions on Scale AI or any other government funding that you might have.
Fabulous. Why don't you jump right into the presentation? And again, anyone watching or listening, just throw your questions in the comments. We will get to them. We want to answer all of them. So don't be shy.
And
go ahead, John.
Just FYI, I cannot see the chat, so you'll have to.
I'll be on top of it. I'll put it on the screen as it comes up. Yep.
Sounds good. So Scale AI is a supercluster. It's a $950 million government program established in 2021 to accelerate adoption of AI across Canadian supply chains and logistics. It is one of many superclusters. There's Engine, which is another supercluster, and there's a bunch of others, but we're focusing primarily on Scale AI. The cool thing about it provides up to 40% of eligible project costs and grant funding, 50% if you're in Quebec, which is even greater. Just FYI, for Shred 2, you get even better return for your Shred work in Quebec. Everything's higher in Quebec, with no limits on total funding per project. Eligible applicants include Canadian supply chain operators, AI solution providers, and consortiums, with a minimum of 2 partners from different organizations. And we'll get into that later as to what that means. Funded projects must be collaborative in nature and leverage AI to make supply chains more intelligent and efficient through transformational implementations. And we'll talk about that. I'll give you some examples about that later on. Activities can include optimizing forecasting, demand planning, predictive maintenance, automated quality control, logistics routing using AI/ML, anything that relates to supply chain. So if it's human resource supply, if it's people supply chain, like there are multiple different ways that you can pitch a supply chain to or supply chain project to Scale AI. The other thing is applications are accepted on a rolling basis. There's no hard deadlines. They're assessed as they are submitted. And just to give you some insights, they are, I think the group meets every 15th of the month, just to give you guys some ideas there. So over 500 million has been invested across dozens of industries, region-focused projects already to date. And then once you're funded, you become a member as well, or you have to become a member. I think don't quote me, I think it's $1,000. I'm not sure, to become a member. They gain access to Scale AI's national network of partners and expertise, plus training and funding resources. So applicant eligibility, you must be a Canadian-based business, for-profit or not-for-profit, academic or other organization. The consortia must include a minimum of 2 contributing partners from different organizations, with at least 1 SME, small, medium-sized enterprise partner, and at least 1 technology adopter. And I'll explain what a technology adopter is later. All recipients, again, must become members upon approval. Project eligibility, and we'll get into specific projects that have been funded later on, but just to give you a high level, projects must aim to accelerate adoption of AI technologies in supply chain management. They must demonstrate clear commercial objectives and a viability in scaling AI applications. It must include collaborators across academia, large enterprises, SMEs, and technology developers. Solutions should process big data, leverage ML, deep learning, focus on optimization, automation, etc. And projects require a minimum of $500,000 in eligible costs over 1 to 3 years. Now, that being said, they do have another stream now where they do fund smaller AI projects, but again, it's supply chain related. So we're talking the 150 to 300 range kind of thing. Eligible costs. So you have your R&D activities, your prototype development, testing, purchase or rental of equipment linked to your AI objectives, which is really cool with this. Management and coordination of projects, and activities to facilitate commercialization and scale up of the solution. So it's essentially end-to-end kind of whatever you need in order for your project to be successful, which is really, really good. Ineligible costs. If you're buying land, any kind of building renovations, large equipment purchases, or overhead costs, those are ineligible for this program. Really short list. So, examples of AI tech in the supply chain, just to give you guys some ideas. So, predictive maintenance. If you're using machine learning on IoT sensor data to predict equipment failures and reduce downtime. Demand forecasting. So if you're using advanced analytics or deep learning on customer behavior, sales data to more accurately forecast demand. Inventory optimization. So AI algorithms to consider factors like demand forecast, lead times, prices to determine optimal inventory levels. And again, inventory optimization, we could certainly talk about inventory optimization as it relates to humans and human resources. So optimizing employees, different things like that, their schedules and things like that, that could potentially be a project that you could pitch. Supply demand matching. So machine learning helps quickly match supply and demand across the network in real time for improved fulfillment. Transportation optimization. So route planning with AI, which considers live traffic, orders to optimize deliveries, and fleet utilization. Then you can talk about quality control. So you're using computer vision to leverage images and video to automatically detect and inspect products for defects on production lines. Again, along with that, anomaly detection. So identifying unusual patterns in operational or sales data to flag issues like fraud for investigation. You could use AI for product recommendations. So suggestions for additional related items to customers during checkout for increased revenue. That one would have to go with a bigger project. They probably wouldn't fund something specific to that unless it was on a large scale. Then we got robotics, so autonomous robots deployed in warehouses, fulfillment centers to boost throughput. Oh, we have a question. Where does the supply chain begin and end?
Yeah, I think because you mentioned something about analyzing your future sales, and you just talked about, analyzing checkout, suggesting other products as part of this process. So the question becomes is, when we're talking about supply chain management and looking for funding in this, I always like to put on my creative hat and say, okay, where does it begin and where does it end? Like, does it start at building the product?
It starts at sourcing the product, even sourcing the materials for the product. It is the good thing about this program, and maybe the bad thing too, is that it's not clearly defined where in the supply chain that they're funding. So I know, and specifically what is supply chain to them is not clearly defined, which allows them for some flexibility in their decision-making process. So as far as supply chain goes, it can be all the way back to I'm just thinking of a t-shirt here. Like if you're getting the cotton for the t-shirt, optimizing that whole supply chain from end to end, or doing some sort of analytics on that, or implementing blockchain into that for traceability and things like that. So when it comes to supply chain as it relates to Scale AI, it's not clearly defined, which is a good thing because it gives the advisors flexibility to think about things that they might not have thought about, if that makes sense. So we'll talk about strategy real quick right now. The best strategy for Scale AI to be successful is to reach out to Scale AI, talk to an advisor, establish that relationship, and see whether or not they have the appetite for whatever project you want to pitch to them. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think we answered the beginning part of the question, like right at the beginning, and I'm going to challenge you through this whole thing. Sorry about that. But the end part of the question, because I see the supply chain doesn't end when it lands in your store. It ends sometime after the customer gets the product.
Yeah.
So could you tie in customer feedback and a bunch of other stuff after receiving the product? Like we have a lot of flexibility when we're talking about injecting tools that help a company grow as part of the supply chain.
Absolutely. I don't think there's, again, since there's no limit to where it begins, I don't think there's a limit to the end. But that being said, if you're if there's kind of like a feedback loop at the end from your customers, you got to look at the scale of the project. So would a project just that at the end of the very end of the supply chain, would that be a large enough project for Scale AI to fund between the 150 to up to, so on average, for the larger projects, we're looking at about 1 to 3 million in funding or project size with Scale AI. So you have to think about, like, you have to look at the project size. So you might need to think about the end of the supply chain as part of a larger project with the middle or the beginning of the supply chain in order for something like Scale AI to have a look at it, for it to be large enough to meet the threshold there. But again, as far as project scope, anything is possible. So as far as it relates to supply chain.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So giving you some examples of funded AI projects from Scale AI. Supply chain optimization. So projects applying AI ML to improve forecasting, demand planning, inventory management, logistics routing. I'm not going to go through all of these. So some of the companies were Anthropic and PortLogix, were supply chain optimization, manufacturing. So predictive maintenance, quality control, resource scheduling, all that sort of stuff. Agriculture. So optimizing crop yields, monitoring soil and equipment health. In the resource industry, so projects exploring AI using cases for predictive analytics in energy, utility sector, automation and mining operations. Transportation, so studies focusing on AI, CV-enabled routing, fleet management, traffic predictions. In healthcare, so AI medical tools, platforms, pharmaceutical research, hospital workflow enhancements, predictive patient care solutions, fraud detection in financial services, risk assessments for portfolio management, retail, supply chain monitoring, demand forecasting, personalized recommendations. So computer vision for self-driving stores, inventory optimization. These are legit examples of projects that have been funded from Scale AI, just to give you guys some idea. So as you can see, it's across multiple different industries. It's industry agnostic. And it is supply chain positioning agnostic. So anywhere in the supply chain it can be.
Yeah, and it sounds like it. Like, you listed a bunch of stuff there that sounds like I would not have considered that necessarily part of the supply chain. Natural language processing, personalized recommendations, and what the heck is computer vision for self-driving stores?
So again, it's robo-advisory through natural language processing and big data. So that would be, so the supply would be advice. The supply chain would be financial advice. And that's what, this is just me kind of thinking because of the discussions I've had with Scale AI and how they think outside the box. That's where I would see that. That's why that would be kind of supply chain related.
Yeah, and that's why I'm asking these questions, to get our viewers and everyone to understand that, when you look at some of this stuff, you think, oh, that doesn't apply to me. But like take a step back, and there's a lot of stuff, personal recommendations. Like, I could think a bunch of cannabis companies, another thing under agriculture, that could use this for a number of different reasons to help their services. I've talked to a bunch of healthcare startups that could use this. I talked to a robot startup that could use this recently. Like, sounds like retail businesses, anybody in the retail industry could be looking at something like this to help them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I say reach out to me if you have a question, because about, or you have a project in mind, because the from my interactions with Scale AI, it's taught me to think differently and think about what is the product that is part of the supply chain, or what is the supply chain that we're actually thinking about. Because I never thought of human resources as potential supply chain, right? Not at all. It's not there yet, but like they're that could be potentially one. So
absolutely.
yeah.
How much, and you're probably going to get to this. You talked about size of the checks in a minute, but how much of the project do they cover?
40% in everywhere else in Canada, 50% in Quebec.
Okay.
And so that's a good question. So the thing is you have to show when you're applying, it's essentially a two-step process in applying. You have to show once you're approved where the 60% or 50% of the funds are going to come from, which is just like any other grant, pretty much. And so just to walk you through the selection process. So again, applications are accepted on a rolling basis through their online portal, and detailed proposals are required. So it starts with a 2-page kind of letter of intent where you fill in, and it tells you maximum number of words. It's really straightforward. From there, the advisor will say, okay, yeah, we like it. Let's move on to the next stage, which is a 25 to 30-page proposal, which is huge. It's quite extensive. So it takes a lot of work, but we're talking millions of dollars here potentially for you for this project. So proposals are screened for eligibility. Then applications undergo a technical review by the Scale AI's engineering domain experts panel. And then the startup or SME must show potential for commercial success, job creation, and economic impacts for Canada. You have to supply a business plan, financials, team profiles, expertise, IP status to them to be evaluated. High potential ventures will receive in-person interviews with Scale AI's investment committee. So there's an interview process as well. They perform due diligence, which may involve customer or partner reference checks. And then the investment committee would then approve or decline projects based on criteria like differentiation, scalability, risks, all that sort of stuff. Again, I'm not from Scale AI, so this is just what I've garnered, which is pretty accurate. It's just I don't have too much detail into the process. If you have questions specifically about the process, I can put you in touch with someone, but this is a good high level kind of overview. It's similar to other funding bodies as well. They're always going to do their due diligence. They're always going to review it. They're all like, so the good thing about Scale AI is they're the type of funding body that is friendly, if I can put it nicely. There are government funds that they're not very open to working with applicants, and they're like, well, just apply for the program and good luck kind of thing. Whereas Scale AI, they have people who will work with you and help you. It is quite extensive. Like, they'll work with you, but you have to do the majority of the work as far as putting together the application, doing all that, making the changes, finding your partners and all that sort of stuff. So, but they are very friendly. So what's a technology adopter? And we talked about that earlier. So a technology adopter, as it relates to Scale AI, refers to an organization that would directly implement and utilize the technological solution or product being developed through Scale AI. So whatever your project is. So for example, in retail, if you've got a computer vision project that's going to record people coming in and out of a mall, you're going to potentially sell that to Cadillac Fairview, for example. Cadillac Fairview would be the technology adopter in that case. So at least one member of the project consortium must be classified as a technology adopter. So you have to have someone ready and willing to implement the project at the end of it. So it helps ensure that there's a clear end user of the AI technology being produced through the project activities. And I think this is great. I think this is great because it forces you to get out there and make sure that there is actually someone interested before you go and develop something, and then see if there's someone interested in buying it. So I think this is a great idea. All you need is kind of like a letter of intent or someone that is willing to adopt it afterwards. So the adopter would test, validate, and provide input on the solution from an end user perspective. So we're talking beta, alpha kind of stuff. And they're not merely contributing as a partner organization, but adopting the financial technology into their own operations. So, question, would it be a fair assessment to say that Scale AI is a program system to help accelerate AI to be disrupted to every humanly possible transaction? Sure. But it's specifically, so if we're talking human possible transaction, it has to, like, yeah, again, it has to come back to, does it relate to supply chain or anything, or logistics or anything like that? So it is meant to help accelerate AI as it relates to supply chain. Absolutely. Do you think I answered that question, Craig? You're on mute.
Sorry. Hopefully they'll ask for clarification if they want a little more information. But yeah, I'm thinking that as long as it has enough impact with all these things, when you're talking about government, they're assessing it. They don't want to throw their money away, so they want to understand that there's some employment involved, that there's something potential. Yeah. Yes.
What's the benefit to Canada? A lot of these, programs are just, IRAP was the first one to kind of, I think, introduce this, is what is the benefit to Canada? What is the benefit to the company? And this is just kind of further from that. So, so it's you're going to have to show that there's going to be increased employment, full-time equivalents, FTEs. You're going to want to show that there is, that there's use cases, that there's people wanting to adopt this, and that it's going to help, that it's going to help solve a problem, right? So, so common examples of adopters could include manufacturers pilot testing new predictive maintenance tools, retailers integrating the AI, transportation companies, things like that. So,
I see all sorts of applications for this that people aren't necessarily think of. You could put stuff in gyms to monitor all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like if you're a startup looking to pilot something cool, you should be looking at this program. If you can get the government to pay for 40% of your pilot to get a couple letters of intent with clients to make stuff happen, it sounds like this could apply to so many different companies.
Yeah,
that they should be jumping all over this.
Absolutely. Yeah. The thing is and nowhere did I see that there was a criteria that you needed to have any sort of income prior to being accepted, just that you have to obviously show that you can come up with the other 60% somehow. So that's really cool. So that's pretty much it for Scale AI. Just some additional grant information to give you guys. For most grants above 75K, you must be incorporated for at least 2 years. There wasn't a specific criteria here, but I'm going to say that you're going to want to be at least incorporated for at least a year, if not 2, for Scale AI. Again, it comes down to risk. So if you're a brand new company, you just incorporated yesterday, and you're looking to apply for millions of dollars in funding, that's a high risk for them, and they're going to probably deny you. So you got to think about what the risk profile from that perspective as far as that. So some grants do require you to show income or revenue. Most grants, and this is grants in general, guys. So most grants require matching funds between 30 to 80%. For Scale AI, it's 40% in Canada, outside of Quebec, 50% in Quebec. The one thing to note, though, guys, is don't start the work before getting approved. If you start spending the money, if you start doing the work, even for Scale AI, for any of these, before you get approved, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. They're not going to cover those costs, and they might even deny your project completely because you started it before getting approved. So just be cognizant of that. Now, and you can also, so Scale AI is great. You can also leverage it. You can, there's some stacking rules around grants, so you just have to be cognizant of that. But the good thing about this is if you're going to be hiring AI experts to kind of build your technology, there are hiring grants that you can use, and most of them can be completed within 30 minutes to an hour. MyTax is a great program that can be leveraged along with Scale AI because my tax give you access to master students, PhD students, postdoctoral, postgrad, higher level kind of caliber students that would probably complement a project like this to help you to get that. Now, if you want to do your own search for other government funding, there's this link here. It brings you to the ISED website, which is called the Business Benefits Finder, and you can create a profile. It will give you kind of an output of different government funding. This is non-dilutive government only. So that's all that they give you, but it'll give you an extensive list with quite a few. One thing I'll tell you is whenever I work with companies, they always send me back this one. And it's SIF, the Strategic Innovation Fund. They're like, oh, we love it. This is great. We want to apply for it. So the description is not very good because it doesn't, like, if you go look at the companies who have gotten SIF funding, we're talking in the 50 millions. So we're talking like 20 to 100 million worth of funding, like minimum for these projects. We're talking Stelco, we're talking large corporations. So if you see anything that says Strategic Innovation Fund, don't get your hopes up too much. But feel free, if you want me to look over any, feel free to send me the links. I'm happy to have a look and give you my 2 cents. But yeah, if you have any questions about Scale AI, if you have any questions about government funding in general, happy to help, happy to steer you in the right direction. And I know Craig does a great job of coaching companies and giving them advice. So if you want to start with Craig first, he can point you towards me as well.
Yeah, I think I looked at this and, just quickly, Scale AI up, I saw over 75K, you've got to be incorporated for 2 years. But okay, now I'm a startup. Yeah. I'm coming out of Futurepreneur. I just got their 60K loan to get my business going, and I'm moving along now. I'm incorporated, and now I've got this plan to do whatever. And I say do whatever, like just say I'm going to streamline fitness, or I'm going to streamline retail, or I'm going to do robotic delivery, or I'm going to do, there's 1,001 things right in there that now I can go to the Scale AI program and say, I've got this project I'm going to do. It's a proof of concept or whatever it is. And I got these 3 letters of intent and I got 60 grand in the bank. I'm ready to go. And this is the impact I'm going to have. So with a couple of quick things, you've got potentially another 50 to 60K to deliver your project with letters of intent of companies with a low risk for yourself. Like, people should really be taking a look at how they could apply this at an early stage as well as a later stage, because we can streamline your businesses later.
Yeah, you raise a good point. So the whole thing with government funding is they don't like taking on too much risk. So if you can reduce their risk profile by showing them, if you don't have the minimum required income or revenue, if you can show them letters of intent from companies, if you can show them contracts, if you can show them all that sort of stuff, that's going to help. I'm not going to say it's going to guarantee you. The reason being is because a lot of programs are oversubscribed. So they're going to take the ideal candidates for the most part. But it always helps. And the thing is there's not a one size fits all for any of these government funds. They're all different. There's all different approaches. There's all different strategies. There's different requirements. There's different criteria. There's all that sort of stuff. So there's, if you come across one that you're interested in, feel free. We can have a conversation about it, or I'm happy to give you my 2 cents. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, we've got the question about asking the possibility of what the long-term effect of Scale AI is in 20 to 30 years from now regarding critical assessment, long-term logistics related transactions.
So this is a great future tech kind of question. So
yep.
Obviously we want to integrate AI sooner rather than later, because if we don't, we're going to get lost. Canada's going to fall behind. Canada's already falling behind in our, what was it? Innovation. anyways, we've already dropped some points. So we really have to ramp up our innovation. And Craig, you and I have had this conversation. So I think that critical assessments, long-term logistics, any kind of related transactions, I think we just have to be obviously cautious of using AI technology maliciously, but that's something that the government needs to address. But for now, let's. I'm sure Scale AI is looking at it from a ethics perspective as well, as far as the application and the ethics implications of those applications. I'm sure they are. But again, I'm not an expert, but that would be a great question if you wanted to attend their webinar and ask them specifically. But yeah, hopefully that is.
And we've talked about this a little bit on what are the KPIs people should be tracking for grants and loans, and they should be scaling up, starting low, and all that kind of stuff. Once you've reached you reach milestones, you open up more government funding. Yeah, I don't know specifically long term with this particular program, but there needs to be an overhaul and all that. Completely.
Yeah, and there's actually going to be a reassessment of the SR&ED program, SR&ED program this year, Canada's R&D tax credit program, in 2024. So there's actually a revamp of a lot of the programs. IRAP and a whole that, like they're doing an assessment and review of a lot of them. So hopefully positive changes, but we'll have to see.
Absolutely. This has been very informative. I want to delve deeper. I'm interested to see how many people follow up with you on this, because this is interesting. And the more with grants and loans, you have to think a little outside the box on a lot of these things, on how to apply this to and people might not immediately think this applies to them, but I can almost think of almost every business that this would apply to.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing is you need the experts from AI. So that's where the hiring comes in. And you just need a great plan, a project plan and business plan, and you are off to the races. So happy to work with anyone that needs help on this.
Yeah, and you gave a shout out to Future Tech, and they're commenting on the thing. They released a video. We released a video on the Palm glove today, the physiotherapy glove, and later there'll be a video on the massive tech layoff. So take a look at that. Subscribe over at Future Tech for those of you who haven't already. We've moved our Future Tech to a new YouTube channel away from our TorontoStarts channel just for tech stuff. So we'll see. So we're starting from scratch. So we'd love to see some subscribers over there as well. You talked about MyTac. You mentioned job grants. And since we're here, I want to ask about them. You can fill out these job grants within 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Do you have to, how many employees do you usually have to start with to get it?
At least one full-time employee on payroll. Yeah. Some of them you don't, especially if you're hiring interns. But the thing is, though, is again, risk profile, right? So the government doesn't want to throw money at a company that's going to just hire an intern that doesn't have any full-time employees and just keep leveraging interns and leveraging these grants and kind of not growing, if that makes sense. So you just have to look. Like there's Canada Summer Jobs, which is great. They give you 50% of minimum wage. That one you can have as many positions as you want for 3 to 6 months. I think it's closed now. I think it closed January 10th, but it reopens every year in December, January. But yeah, most hiring grants. MyTax is a little different. MyTax is a little bit more involved. You typically want to work with an advisor there. They're awesome people. They're great. They're always eager to work and get to know the company and find out more. Then there's BIPOC hiring grants. There's minority hiring grants. There's underrepresented hiring grants. There's a lot of youth hiring grants. So, and the thing is most of these hiring grants too most of the hiring grants are for youth. So between 15 and 30. So either recent grads or in school or different things like that. So.
Can you double dip with Scale AI and Shred?
Yes and no. So the long answer is you can still get the proxy overhead calculation of. I'm going to get a little technical here without giving you. So for those that don't know Shred, it's Canada's R&D tax credit program. where you can get a tax credit refund for any of your innovation like stuff with Scale AI, but you can't double dip. You can half dip, if that makes sense, or 1.5 dip. And what that means is, for salaries in Canada, when you're claiming them for shred, the government will give you two options: a proxy overhead amount of 55% on your salaries, or you calculate it traditionally. So you take all your bills and you take a percentage of what would be allocated to shred, to doing shred. So you can still get for Scale AI or any other government program that you get funding for that covers salaries, you can still get the 55% overhead proxy overhead amount on the salaries. But when you're calculating the investment tax credits, that's the shred tax credits, you got to back out all of the funding that you got for salaries that you're claiming for shred. If you got funding for salaries that you're not claiming for shred, you don't have to back it out because you're not claiming it. So, little longer answer, but it's a very detailed. It's not a simple yes or no. So, but great question.
Yeah, and obviously we need to just kind of be aware of these things, because you want to use your money to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Right. You, as a startup is a business with a limited runway looking for viability, right? You got to get the product off the ground and get revenue in before you run out of runway. And so the more you can stretch that runway with cash from the government or cash back from tax credits like shred to do more, the better off you're going to be. And investors like to see that you're frugal with your money and you know how to get through these things.
Yeah, they want to see a high burn rate. Actually, they don't even care about high burn rate. It's more investors, but they want to see that you're using the government money wisely, that you're not abusing it, as far as you're not trying to double, triple, quadruple dip sometimes. So yeah, shred is their one way that they keep you definitely above board, because they'll audit you every now and then if you're claiming salaries and things like that for shred. So just be cognizant of that.
All right, John, you got anything else going on that you might want to promote before we take off?
So there is a roundtable coming up, and I can't remember the date, but if you're interested, it's at Creator Club, put on by King Street Social. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be there with a bunch of different people. We're going to be talking HR. We're going to be talking branding, and we're going to be talking funding. For those of you that are interested, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll send you the link, or I'll give it to Craig and fix it in post.
Yeah, I was just trying to Google it, but it didn't come up right away. So if you're my keyword going, I was trying to grab the link there. And we've got our Mentoring Magic co-founder event, co-founder matchup event on February 14th. Come on by if you're looking to get a co-founder for your startup. We'll get you out of there by 8:30 so you can go on your Valentine's Day plans, whatever's going on. But if you're looking for a co-founder, investors rarely invest in solopreneurs. Go out there and find one. Go to mentoringmagic.ca. We're doing that with Futurepreneur Consulta. Most of our stuff you can find on TorontoStarts.com. There's new content every single day. So go check that out. It's all startup related. If you want to work with me, go to startupcoach.ca. And we have our startup investor drinks monthly. Next one's February 29th. We do that downtown in person. Come out, talk to startups, investors, pitch for 20 seconds, meet John and I. It's great. Anything else going on, John?
Actually is a February 29th. This is a leap year, guys. We're not messing with you. So
absolutely.
And Craig, don't you have something on Mondays?
Oh yeah, Mondays we normally do Startup Face Off, but I'm changing the name based on some feedback we've gotten. I think I'm going to go back to the Startup Talk because it makes more sense. But yes, we do Monday nights. We do a Startup Talk 4-panel thing, and then Friday mornings we do Future Tech Live here on YouTube with John and I, where we're talking about the latest breakthrough and tech gadgets and all that stuff. I think, like I said, the physiotherapy glove, the nuclear battery that lasts 50 years, the future of holograms we talked about last time. So I don't know what's on deck for this Friday, but there's always cool stuff, and definitely come out and watch us then.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Craig.